We're here to talk about the inside out, about why he posted that tweet.
I'll start at the beginning of the downfall. The downfall of SunlessKhan. Nobody did anything wrong, and I have zero regrets.
It's the Inside Out, where we talk about what's going on inside, outside. Hello and welcome to the Inside Out. I am your host, Luke Renner. Thank you for joining me again today. As you may know, if you're following along on this podcast, this is a program where I attempt to have conversations. Either it's me talking or I have on a guest where we talk about sort of the inner life, the inner world. We bring that out in the open onto the table so we can work through things, either, again, whether it's just me or I'm working through things with a friend or even someone I may have just met. So today's guest, I'm really excited to introduce to you, Jared Zook. Jared, say hello to everyone.
What's up, everyone? So good to be here.
Jared and I kind of go, I don't know if way back is the right word here, but we go a little ways back. How would you describe that?
I would say way back, yeah. I mean, anything beyond the 4 years, I'd say is way back. That's my range for way back.
Well, that works then. So to me, Jared is Jared. I've known Jared for a while. We've worked together professionally. At one point, Jared was actually my employee, which sounds a little silly when I frame up who Jared is sort of in the world today. Jared is kind of a big deal, sort of like Ron Burgundy. People know him. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, some people know me, I would say. Some people know me.
Jared goes by a different name online. Jared is SunlessKhan on YouTube and Instagram and Twitter, which is now X. I'll never get used to that. But yeah, so Jared, tell us about that. You have kind of a few subscribers, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I do have a couple. And
a couple million?
A couple million, yeah, over time. It feels kind of weird to even think about that, to be honest. Like, it's just...
Right.
Even just looking back the last 4 or 5 years, it is kind of a blur. And I really mean that. I mean, it's crazy how it happened. It's not always planned or not always, just... It's tough to even conceptualize a follower count and stuff. It's such a weird online thing that we just accept.
Yeah, at that level too, I feel like, because I'm still very, very low, in my numbers. And so like every follower or unfollower, like you notice it at the low end. But you're at this level where like YouTube says 2.2 plus million. Like it's sort of like there's stuff happening. You don't even see that 0.2 doesn't change until like another 100,000 followers have subscribed, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I remember starting out and reading every single comment. And I just, in some ways, I think really fondly to that. So, before you blow up really big, maybe just enjoy this.
That's a good thing. I don't think I'm going to blow up really big. Certainly not 2.2 million. That's nuts. I seem to remember. So tell people what your channel does. Like you're very specifically focused, right?
Yeah, super focused. In fact, when I first started, I didn't think I would even be this focused because it started as Rocket League. It was a game I played while I was working for you. It was just a little hobby after work, to get on and play
Rocket League is what? Explain the game just very simply.
Yeah, so Rocket League is just soccer with cars. So you control a car and you try to knock the ball into the goal. That's all it is. It's beautifully simple, actually. That's the exact kind of thing that I would be drawn to in terms of gaming, because there's a lot of really complicated, really intense games out there, and just a little bit unapproachable in a way. And so Rocket League, very approachable, very exciting to me.
And it there's an online component, so you get to play these matches with people all around the world, right?
Yes, that's really the draw. To be honest, it's not really just you could play against the computer, sure. It's not very good, so quickly you become adept at playing the game better and better. And the real draw is that you're playing against other people online. So that's where the competitive the competitive spirit kicks in. You want to beat other people, and you kind of climb the ladder. There's kind of a hierarchy, this rank. So you try to improve your rank so you can play against better people. And it's actually kind of a cycle, because eventually there's always a better player, and so eventually you kind of just settle into your rank, and you can try to get better, you can try to improve, but there's always better and better people, which is, it's kind of cool, but it's also kind of it's kind of your main obstacle. other people.
And this is like real lifestyle stuff for people, right? I mean, I have folks in my audience who, when we say game, they're like, are we talking about a board game? I mean, we're talking about a video game. By and large, played online, remotely with a global audience. There are leagues. There are actual like tournaments and championships and prizes. And like, this is a real whole world, right?
Yeah, it's a whole world. And that's a lot of what drew me in with my content. So that allowed me to explore other ways of creating content, because there was this whole world that I became a fan of, and when I became a fan of it, became more interested in it, I saw really cool storylines and characters and interesting people and accomplishments and emotion and all, you know, the full spectrum of competition and passion. And so there's a lot to dive into if you want to. Like, it's this niche community that's there, and I kind of discovered this world that I thought was really cool and fascinating, and I was a part of it too. So yeah, I mean, telling the stories of people, I mean, it opens up a huge variety of approaches you could take to content. But at the end of the day, it's just videos about car soccer, you know. It's just different ways of presenting it, really.
I love it. Just videos about car soccer. But it's huge. I love this. And I kind of remember, so when you were still working with me, you were doing it, as you sort of alluded to here just a moment ago, kind of on the side. It was just part of your life at home.
Yeah.
And you started a YouTube channel. I seem to remember you asking permission if that was okay, which is just a reflection, like, because it was video work, but it was away from the office. And I think you were smart enough to recognize that it wasn't so much if you were asking permission, what can you do in your private time, but it was sort of like, you know, working on videos just in general it requires a lot of attention and focus and ideas. You can get stale and burned out. And so you seemed to have a sense for like, okay, if I'm burning the candle on both ends, making videos here at the office and making videos at home, is that cool with you guys? And we were like, yeah, whatever. I mean, obviously we didn't know we were signing our own eviction notice as your employers, but I remember there was a point where, so you've been creating this catalog of videos about this game. Some of it's like, I remember early on at least, a lot of tutorial content, how to play the game better. Can you talk about what people would find on your channel? Obviously, people who know SunlessKhan are listening to this painful introduction, and they're like, get on with the good stuff. We want to know what's going on. But I definitely want to make sure the people who have no idea what this is are comfortable understanding your niche. So what's the nature of some of the videos? You talked about stories of people. That seems like maybe that came a little later, but tell me the different kinds of stuff.
Yeah, really good questions, actually, because even someone in my community might not know some of these details or like the evolution, so it's really not old stuff. It is kind of interesting how it evolved. So the natural thing most people say when they, you know, that are not familiar with gaming or YouTube content is they do ask like, oh, so you tell people how to play the game. And that is a natural question, because that is kind of the natural progression when you start creating content. It's like how-to videos are a great sort. Like, everyone wants to look up how to play the game or like what they can do to get better. That's kind of just a thing you do with hobbies. So that is what I started with. It was how-tos. But it was a little boring for me. I didn't want to just like say how to play the game. And another thing is I wasn't that good. I wasn't that good at the game. I was a very casual player. So I wasn't even really in a place to tell people how to play the game.
Right.
But what I did enjoy is the frustration I would feel in the game was actually kind of the catalyst for creating some of the content that eventually started to get some traction. So my first big video where I really kind of broke through, all it was I was playing an online game. You know, I was playing a ranked game, so it was competitive, and I was frustrated with my teammates. I thought they were doing dumb things, so I saved the replay, which is where you can save the instance of the game, and you can then replay it, but you can change every camera angle about it. You can re-record it kind of, and you can show the other players' perspectives. So I would go to their perspectives, and I'd be like, "This is why you don't want to do this." It was like very patronizing. Like it was a comedic take on like, what not to do. And so I called it Why You Suck at Rocket League, and it was a thinly veiled, like, just me ranting about my teammates is all it was. But there was some real good nuggets of truth in there. Because they, you know, frankly, we all were terrible. This is like low-ranked gameplay. But they were doing dumb things. And so I was pointing out what they were doing. You know, it's a little easier to point out other people's mistakes. And so there was accurate information in there, and people loved it because I was sarcastically, you know, it was very passive aggressive. I wasn't saying like, this guy sucks. I was just saying, you know, it might not be a good idea to go for this ball because there's no one in net. You know, like, it's just very making them sound dumb. And so that was the first video that took off. So it was tutorial content, but it was like with a twist. It was like, it was also like sarcastic, and it was just a beautiful outlet for me. And so I found it very...
And you're self-deprecating too a lot of times. Like, I mean,
of course.
You don't just... I mean, it's just like very free flow, which I think is part of the charm.
Yep. So then I thought I had to do tutorial content because this was my... Okay, that broke through. So I obviously made Why You Suck at Rocket League Episode 2. Episode 3, I turned it into a series, which was really fun. But, you know, it kind of ran its course. And so I started to explore other things. Like, I was like, can I break out of this tutorial kind of mode I'm in? Or like, but every time I felt like every time I experimented, I got punished for it. Like, it didn't get as many views as when I did the Why You Suck at Rocket League. It was like, I had this feeling that's why people were there. And so I was kind of stuck. I was stuck with like, I have to make this type of video. And I almost gave up. I really could have just let it peter out. Like, there was a period there, you know, I was busy with work and I had other things in my life. There was a period where I didn't upload for a month or two, and it almost kind of just petered out. But then I started to get interested in the competitive Rocket League because there's leagues, there's tournaments and stuff, as you said. And so a big breakthrough was when I took a moment where this player did something incredible, and I broke down the play kind of like ESPN. I had an idea of like, what if I treat this like a real sport? I hadn't seen that type of content for gaming, but I'm really interested in sports content. I like when they break it down and show the details and say why this happened. And there was no sort of like retrospective, there was no like detailed content like that in gaming. People kind of just accepted it. They hadn't seen that style.
Yeah, like with football, there's halftime show, there's after game talk through and play by plays, and that didn't exist for online gaming.
Well, it wasn't
desks. A big thing,
right?
Yeah,
there were analysts for sure, but it was very surface level. It was like, I hope you know he's playing really well. You know, it's just typical stuff. There was no like extra content. There was no the equivalent would be for ESPN. There's 30 for 30, which is their documentary series. And they'll take a topic and really, like, it's a documentary. There was no in-depth documentary-style content for Rocket League at all. And so that really stood out when I did that.
Now, there was a big shift in the landscape of this particular game, or in the life of this particular game, as I recall. The game was a game you had to pay. You had to buy the game to play it for the longest time. And so I'm going to spout off some history, and you correct it and make it better here. But as I recall, you had developed quite a library up to a certain point where you had a lot of videos. You were showing up. You were getting success. You had a lot of subscribers. But then something happened where, as I understand or I recall, the game developer decided to switch the model for the game. The game then became free to own. You just downloaded it for free, and it was more of a pay to play, like a lot of mobile games. They're free, but then you can buy treasure chests and coins and this and that and that became their new model. And at that point, the moment when the game became free for everybody, there was this enormous onloading of users, of players, and it just naturally made it so that your channel was just like poised to absorb this audience of people saying, like, how can I get good quick? Is that an accurate recall, or how did it really happen?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. The game studio got bought out. So the entire studio got bought by a much bigger company. And that company owns Fortnite, which is the most popular video game probably ever. So they had this model of free-to-play, like you said, and then just paid DLC was how they made their money. Paid items, cosmetic stuff. So that's what they switched that to Rocket League, or they used that model in Rocket League, and enormous growth of players, and by that point I had gone away from the tutorial content, so I had established myself as I had finally broken out and was able to do purely entertainment. So that was a huge goal of mine, and I just didn't know how to do that for like literally a year or two. It was just on the side. And so once I started doing that and finding other ways to present the game, just other types of videos, I mean, YouTube is just, it can be a struggle to find what works, you know. So I was experimenting a lot. But yeah, I had kind of broken through at that moment. And like you said, I had a catalog. I probably had 100 videos at that point. So when it went free, yeah, all of a sudden it went from, say, how many people played it? Maybe 800,000, like a player base of 800,000 people, to like 3 million. So, you know, huge difference. There were like 3 million people playing at one time. So actually even more, I guess, if you count like just people that have played it. So it was a substantial difference. So it wasn't even necessarily people looking up how to play. There was definitely that. It was just people interested in the game now. And so they would watch a video on Rocket League because they're playing it, and then they would get recommended, okay, what are the best Rocket League videos out there? And then I was the top of the game at that point, so all my videos just got pushed into everyone's algorithm that was interested in this game.
Do you recall what your followership was around that time, and how kind of like how quickly it grew after that? Do you have any recollection of that?
So what I go by, I mean, yeah, the subscribers is a thing for sure. But on YouTube, I'll go by views. So like I was doing like 3 million views a month, just cumulatively, like my entire channel, 3 million views.
This is prior to this shift?
Prior. And it would go up and down. So like 3 to like 5. I think 5 or 6 was maybe when I was doing really well. Or like when I had released a couple videos that happened to be popular. And then if I was in kind of a lull, it'd be like 3. In September, on my birthday, September 23rd, it went free to play. In October...
What year was that?
2020.
Okay.
So September, it was like 4 or 5 million views in the month.
Oh, factoring in COVID now too, right? So
yes. So I had a little bit of growth because of COVID. Because more people were playing in general. But this was right before free to play. So I almost had 1 million subs. Okay. So that's why I don't even want to look at the subs. It's more the views. So 5 million views in September. October, it was 50 million.
Holy shit.
It was like a 10x for everything.
Wow.
And I was doing pretty well. Yeah, it's absurd. It's absurd.
So
it was like
because it was like prior to that moment that you had left your real job with us.
Yeah.
Because you were already earning enough to replace, like you didn't need 2 full-time jobs at that point, right? So you were already doing fine.
Yeah.
If not well, and then boom.
Yes. So I went from doing well to like doing. It was like the lottery. Like it was ridiculous. It wasn't even fair.
Did that screw with your life in any kind of like real ways? And we're kind of moving in the direction of why you're on this particular podcast today. But just in terms of right around that time, did you feel increased pressure all of a sudden? Did something feel like it needed to change because the environment had changed so significantly? Or did you have the confidence to say, I'll just keep being exactly the way I've been? Like, how was that kind of moment for you?
Yeah, I try to think back on that a lot. I have screenshots of my phone when things were happening, and I could see the little graph go up, and I try to remember what it was like. But it's really weird because I remember being shocked at seeing the numbers go up and like 50 million views and the income 10xing, but it didn't really feel real. And honestly, it was cool, but it wasn't like, I don't know. It's really weird to describe. It didn't feel like that amazing. I was just stressed with other things. Like I just remember being, from that time period, I remember being more stressed about COVID. This was right around the election, the 2020 election. I was stressed as hell about that. I was super anxious about things going on in the world. I remember being really hopeless at that time. So I remember thinking, man, I have all this money now, and the world has completely gone to shit, and I have nothing to spend. Like, there's nothing I want to do. I just want to be home and be safe. And so it was a really weird feeling where I was like, sweet, I have all this success, and now I'm living in a place that I don't even want to. I don't feel safe in the world. I don't feel happy or at home, or I don't feel like I even have a future. So it kind of felt pointless. It was kind of an empty win where I was like, everyone else is suffering. It's COVID. You know, like people are literally dying. There's political turmoil. Like all this crazy stuff's going down. and awesome, I have some money in the bank. Like, I have nothing that I want to spend it on or do anything with it. Like, I'm just kind of depressed at home.
So this is to people who are interested in YouTubing, to people who are interested in the gaming niche. There's, I feel like, a lot of really interesting stuff we've already talked about up to this moment that those folks are going to love. But it's really kind of serendipitous and interesting how it is that we come to be talking together today, because I think it was about a week ago I reached out to you, and I actually asked, hey, I kind of like said, hey there, buddy, I'm working on my own podcast on YouTube, and I'm looking for guests, people that I'd like to talk to. We're friends. You're doing a cool thing in the world. Would you maybe want to come on? I was fully prepared for you to say, pass. But you were kind, and you were like, yeah, let's do it. And you said there's kind of some big stuff going on in my life right now. What I didn't know at the time when I reached out was that you had actually made a public-facing statement related to your work as SunlessKhan. And if I can, real quick, I'm going to see if I can pull up and just read a tweet. Do they still call them tweets now that it's X? I call it Twitter
a tweet.
still.
I'm stubborn. I'm not going to say I reposted it. I retweeted it.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And then when I want to go to X, I have to go to the browser. I type twitter.com.
Yeah, same.
Is there a new URL? I don't know. Anyway, here's the tweet. And this was on December 1st. I didn't know this when I reached out to you, but you had tweeted on December 1st. Tough announcement I need to make. I'm going to be stepping back from all things Rocket League for an indefinite time. This is extremely difficult for me, as this has been my passion and joy for 5+ years. Nobody did anything wrong, and I have zero regrets. I just need to be offline for a good while to prioritize my physical and mental health. I hope to return in some capacity when I'm better. Love you guys. Had no idea you had posted that, and I'm like, hey, buddy, you want to come on my podcast? And you were like, this is a great time. So just for my audience, this is kind of where I wanted this conversation to shift to. So if you wanted to tune in and hear SunlessKhan go on for hours and hours about the inside out of what he does, we're here to talk about the inside out about why he posted that tweet, and I think you posted on Instagram as well. And what's going on for you right now. And then I thought maybe by the time we wrap this up, if you do have any good advice, best tips based on what we're about to talk through, and maybe in part, for people who are either doing the gaming thing or the online thing, or just, living life in sort of, I would consider these to be a little bit non-traditional terms, although it's becoming more and more normal, I think, for people to have these different kinds of lives and careers. So what the heck was that tweet about, Jared? What's going on, man? How do we launch into this part of the conversation?
Yeah, this is the newest chapter of my life, and I've spent a lot of, I guess it's only been, this is 13 days since that announcement. So the last 2 weeks, I've done a lot of soul searching and a lot of just reflection and analysis, which I always do. Like, I'm always an overthinker, so... But it's been good. It's been good. I suspect it's fair to say that prior to writing that message to your fan base, you had done a lot of soul searching and thinking prior to that moment. So you're not a guy, you're not a rash guy. You don't just do stuff and then go, what did I just do? Like, you've always been very calculated. So walk us through this. As far as your audience goes, they probably don't know much more than what was in that message, right? Yeah. I'll have to start at the beginning, really.
Please do.
I'll start at the beginning of of the downfall of SunlessKhan, because it's interesting, and there's a lot of good things that came out of it. So that's important. That's an important thing to know, and that's why I said nobody did anything wrong, and I have zero regrets. There's definitely things I messed up in, but I don't think any of them led to me stepping away. It's just kind of how it happened. It's a tragic story, in some ways, but it's also kind of cool. So I noticed about a year and a half ago, I noticed that my work was becoming really difficult, and I accepted this as a normal thing because I just have this sense, I have this feeling in myself that work, maybe a lot of people have this, work is not supposed to be fun. Like, it's supposed to be difficult.
Like, everybody hates their job, right?
Everybody
like,
hates their job.
Who loves their job, right?
Yeah.
Or a lot of people do.
Yes. There's some, of course, there's some people that are just like, I'm living the dream, and, that's great.
And you were that guy for a hot minute.
I was, yes. And that's the thing I've reflected on is for those first couple years when I was doing YouTube, I didn't even realize until I stepped away in these last couple weeks how productive I was. But it's truly insane. It's truly insane. I'm just pulling up a link here. In my entire channel's life, I've made 363 videos.
Wow.
And so, in 200 of them
average
were
video length?
Period.
Average video length is between 5 and 10 minutes, at least, right? Like,
it used to be, but now with YouTube, watch time is a really big thing, and that's a big factor in your success. Is you want to keep people for a long time. So, over time, in the past, it was great to do shorter videos, and then it was 10 minutes used to be the golden mark because that's when you could fit a mid-break ad in. So you would maximize your revenue, and YouTube would also maximize their revenue, so they would push those videos. And then in the last 4 or 5 years, it's been longer, get even longer. Try to get to 12, 14, 18 minutes. That's the sweet spot. So that's when I started to find success, was when I was doing that longer form stuff. So it wasn't until I left, I wasn't able to do those type of videos when I was still working my regular job, because that takes a week to make a video that long. If you want to make it good. So once
that's just making it. You're having to come up with the ideas. You're having to schedule. If there are other people on the other end of the video, you have to schedule that.
And I did it all.
Can't even imagine. You did all of it.
I did it all. I was editing it. I made all my thumbnails. I was doing everything, and I loved it. And it was so easy. It was so easy, which is crazy. And I didn't realize how crazy it was.
Easy because you loved it, or easy because it's easy to do this? I mean, it kind of can be hard too, right? So easy in what way? You were flowing?
Complete flow.
Okay.
And I had the skills, frankly, from you, from working at the video production company that you were the boss of, you and Dave. So I had the skills. One of the bosses.
Yeah, we were sad to see you go. You were one of our editors that when you left, I remember thinking shit, I have to learn how to motion track some stuff now, because Jared,
yes, the motion tracking.
Jared always, and I would even reach back out to you later, hey dude, sorry, how did you do that again? Even though I could have gone to YouTube and looked up the tutorial. Sorry. So yeah, it takes a lot, and you're doing all this. Okay, keep going.
I loved it. It was addicting. It was ecstasy. That's all I wanted to do was make videos. I didn't want to do anything else in the entire world, which is one of the most beautiful and fulfilling things you could ever do. And I thought I could just last forever. But I was just wrong about that. But I really want to focus on how amazing those first 3 or 4 years were. Because I was so productive, and it was so easy, and I didn't want to do anything else. And I would get anxiety when I wasn't making videos. I would dread vacations. I didn't want to go on vacation. I wanted to make RocketLeague videos. That's all I wanted to do. And so maybe if you're hearing that, you can immediately identify maybe that's not perfectly healthy. But I have no regrets that I absolutely dove into that, because that was, I was just following my passion. And so I don't have any...
Well, and you've done well for yourself. You've been able to check a lot of boxes in your life, and I suspect the lives of friends and family members as well, because you've done well. So it's not just, I found a thing that I loved, but it paid well, and it had everything.
Yes,
right?
That added to the addiction. It was the more I put out, the better I did. The more I thought through videos, the more I invented and thought of ways to. I was doing some genuinely impressive creative work, with a limited topic. I was pushing it as far as I could. I was a film student, so I was trying to introduce concepts from my film background. I was experimenting with storytelling. I was experimenting with presentation, plot twists. I did a video where I pretended to be I pretended to be one of my teammates. I was presenting it as my teammate's point of view. Then at the end, it was a twist. I was like, just kidding. I would never do that. And like, I had so much fun just like really pushing what you could do with car soccer videos. And my audience responded every time I topped my previous video. I would get such an amazing response, and the video would do well, and it was like huge surge of dopamine, and I just wanted to do it more and more and more and more. And the definitely most negative thing I could pull out of that is like just going on vacations was tough for me because all I could think about was, man, I want to be home making videos. So like time with family, I wasn't really there. I wasn't really present. So that is kind of, I guess there is one regret, but in a way, it was only 3 years. But anyway, so about a year and a half ago, I started to notice that I wasn't putting out as many videos as I was before, and I didn't know why. I was just like, when I would edit, it just felt like work now. It was different. And I thought it was just because, that's just going to happen. It's...
And this brings us back to where you started to sort of justify, okay, this kind of sucks now, but lots of people hate their jobs, so now's the time where I have to slide into like just be a good boy, show up and do your work. Like it feels like work, but who doesn't have to work? So we're going to do our duty, right? Like so
exactly.
You're feeling this shift, this relationship inside of you shift.
Yes. And I felt some intense guilt because I felt like during that time I wasn't doing any work. I was dicking off in my room playing video games. Like it wasn't work at all to me. It was so easy. Because you've mentioned
to me that you also just play Rocket League for fun. Yeah. So it's your job and it's your hobby. There's maybe another moment where a good therapist might go, it's not bad per se, but like...
Yes. Especially talking about it now, I'm like, I could see why everything turned out the way it did. It's not surprising. But at the time, I was living the dream. I could play video games as much as I wanted. I could afford the best computer gear, so I was like, and I could justify it because it was work. So I have the best like equipment. I decided to like go all out in my room. I had all these fancy lights, but I didn't make any big purchases. It was just like I never like bought a cool car. Partly because my wife is just like would never let me do that, and I was kind of struggling with her. Like I have the money to do this now, and she just like, Jared, I hate sports cars. Like, you cannot do that. And I'm really glad I listened because that's probably not me either. And so really she kind of grounded me in that. But I never made like big extravagant purchases. I just bought little stuff from my childhood. Like I was living... It was also intoxicating because I created all the things I couldn't have as a kid. Well,
it's all the things Legos, that every kid... Okay, yeah, because like every kid's parents would be like, I mean, even my own 10-year-old Charles, like he'll play he likes Rocket League. He was thrilled to know that I even know you, and then to know that I'm dad's doing it. So, but like he's the average kid where you'd be like, dude, you've been playing games so much. Like life isn't about playing games. You're not going to make a living playing games. Like all this stuff that I've said to my own kid, you're going like, I'm making a hell of a living, and all I do is play these games, right? Like, so it's really like, talk about, not in a spiteful way, but thumbing your nose at the way it's always been told. Like, you just, you're literally living a dream, right?
Yeah. One more aspect about that is I also grew up in a house that video games were viewed very negatively. Like you're saying, get off the game, but you're still letting him play the game. Like,
right.
My parents did let me play, but it was extremely strict time restrictions, like half an hour.
Okay.
And I was very passionate about video games. It was very clear, like this is great for my brain. Like I just love this. It was the best thing in the world. And I was probably more passionate about gaming than some of my friends, but they had all the new systems and stuff. So when we go to their house, I would just be so annoying. I'd be like, let's play. Because all I had was like I had like a system from the 80s and growing up in the 2000s. Like I had the Nintendo, I had the NES, everyone else had the PlayStation. So it was viewed as pretty negative. Like we didn't have the TV up in the living room. The TV was downstairs. Like video entertainment was not viewed as like a good way to spend your time.
Okay.
In some ways, I appreciate that, but like that was how I grew up. So I'm also, not only am I like living the dream, I'm like being like, I'm fulfilling what I didn't get as a kid. Yeah.
You know, your parents could argue you owe us because we starved you of this thing you wanted so much that when it was time to get to work on that thing, you had the hunger, right?
Yes. I've thought of that, and you're right. Yeah, I thought of that aspect too, where it's like I was deprived. Yes. Now I'm like, yes.
Okay, so back to this roughly a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. Things are changing. You're noticing it. Please pick up back there if you don't mind. Like what started to what was happening in the world where you're going, okay, there is a change now. Things have shifted or are shifting. What was it that started to sort of stand out to you? You said you used to love working. Does that mean now you don't love working? Like what are things that are changing?
Yeah, I was noticing the late nights were becoming really difficult. I didn't want to finish the videos I was working on. I was like, but I could never admit that maybe I was just losing some passion for this. I could never admit that. It was always something else. And I also noticed symptoms of depression popping up. And I didn't think it was related to my career. Like I was kind of just with the blindfolds on. Like I didn't have much perspective in my life at all. I was alone in my office a lot, which is where I preferred to be. You know, I was in my cave. I wasn't.
I can't do this with other people around. Like you have to be alone.
Absolutely not. To
do this stuff.
And also as an introvert, I didn't naturally seek out friendships and stuff. And I didn't recognize that I even needed that. So I was living an unhealthy lifestyle of isolation by choice, because that's that's what I wanted to do. So I noticed a lot of irritability. I noticed physical manifestations of frustration that I didn't have before. So the biggest one would be when I would get frustrated in the game. I used to turn that into content, and I still did at that time too. I would save moments of toxicity, or because people get really mad in this game because it's frustrating.
Right. And so they'll type sport, right? We get mad when we don't go our way. So
yes, people will type crazy things, and I would clip that, I would save it, and put it in videos and make fun of these people. So it's kind of messed up in a way, but it's kind of harmless because these are just gamer names saying crazy things.
You're not pointing to this exact real human. It's sort of
exactly.
There's a little obfuscation. Plus, you also had a pretty good habit and rhythm at this point of making fun of yourself too. So it's sort of like you're not punching down, right? You're kind of just punching across at your fellow leaguer.
But important thing was I was the editor, so I would cut out if I would say something, I would cut that out. I was usually the good guy in these type of videos, but there would be moments where I would find an acceptable mistake or an acceptable moment where I made a mistake and I could point at it, but a lot of things I did hide. So sometimes it felt like it was not completely real, but it was like an acceptable level because it was for entertainment and I was shaping the story. Sometimes I would cut stuff just because it didn't make sense, but I learned to hold my tongue because if I would say something, it would kind of ruin the video. Well, what started happening is I started to get so sucked into the game. And rather than being able to brush off people's comments or just not be affected by the emotion of the game, I started to type more, and I was having more difficulty with my content because I'd ruin it by also being toxic. I was like becoming what I hated, which is crazy. And then I started throwing my controller, which is like this kind of a cliche raging gamer embarrassing thing. Like I remember reading a tweet from a friend, and she had a picture of a hole in her wall, and it wasn't hers. It was a joke. It was like a meme. It was like she was like, "Sorry guys, I just got mad," or like she made some joke about it, and she had just Googled this picture,
and everybody understands what that means.
Yes, and so it's kind of this laughing stock if you're actually like that. And sometimes I would drop comments like, "Hey, do you guys actually does anyone actually throw their controller?" And a couple people would be like, "Yeah." Most people would say no. And so I immediately felt
not everybody's making the big bucks either because controllers are like $90, right?
It didn't matter to me. I just had a stockpile of them, and I would break them a lot from just naturally playing too. The controllers do kind of suck, to be honest. So they are kind of replaceable because in Rocket League it's just a lot of pressure on it, and so I would go through them a lot without throwing them. So it wasn't. So that also added that it wasn't a big deal to me. So I would throw them. And sometimes they'd break, sometimes they wouldn't. But yeah, it started getting worse and worse. And so a year and a half ago, it got so bad where I started to get really destructive, and I broke my door after a really intense moment. It feels funny to try to explain it. I broke my door. It feels funny to explain that to someone who hasn't played Rocket League, but maybe the people that have would understand that the rage can get that serious.
Now, when one of your fans just heard you say that, and they just looked over at their broken door, like they just totally just like,
like he's one.
It's not just you, right? I suspect.
Yeah. But I started to recognize that is definitely...
What does broke my door mean? Did you yank it off the hinge, or what did you do?
No. It's a really crappy door, for one thing, so let me just downplay my violence.
Okay. Or your strength.
Yeah, or my strength. I did kick it, and my foot just went through. It was like... It's hollow. It was hollow, too. It was a hollow door. Very cheap. And so... my leg just went through. It didn't take much. Wow. The door was shut, so it was just like... Went right through. But it's very traumatic experience to just have this destruction of my property in front of me. Like I'd never done anything like that before. And not to mention for Linnell, who's just like comes in and just sees this door destroyed. He's just like, Jared, what is happening? And it was really embarrassing and really shameful for me because I mean, even for the next couple days, I had this destroyed door and I was trying to hide it. I tried to fix it myself, so I took it off the hinge and I bought a new door the next day. I just spent the next day trying to repair it, and I was just so bad at it. I couldn't align it right.
Sounds like me. I'm worthless at home. I'm worthless. Yeah. So did you hire? You had to then hire somebody to fix your door for you?
I hired someone to come, and I didn't want to explain what had happened. Obviously, I don't know if he was super cool. He fixed. So he didn't see the destroyed door because I had tried to replace it. So he just fixed my fixed door.
He hung your new door. Okay.
He hung the new one. But yeah, it was still like a very shameful, embarrassing thing, which is in a way motivated. I mean, it woke me up to the fact that I needed to like seek some help. I needed to go to therapy, and I hadn't been to therapy at all up to this point.
Like in your life? In my
life. Never.
Now, this is interesting because I know you know about it because you were a producer on my documentary, What Lies Inside. So when you were still at the shop there at the end, we were working on the film really aggressively. We worked on it for 6 years. So you had been on the interview with Bessel van der Kolk and several other, like you were very aware of mental health. You were very aware of depression and all this stuff. And it's interesting because you're kind of saying, but when it was happening in your own life, like you would have had an easier time seeing it in the life of another, but calling a duck for yourself, it sounds like, was not as easy. Is that fair to say?
Extremely difficult. It's just it's just so easy, to just say like, oh, you should really see someone, or like therapy is great. Like everyone should go to therapy. But yeah, when it comes down to yourself, man, it is definitely much harder. You just have the blinders on. I just say like
So you're throwing controllers, and you're like, this isn't great, but I don't need help. It took the foot through the door. You mentioned the shame. There was a culminating moment where you went, okay, maybe it's time to have a talk. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So how did that happen?
Yeah. I had a great experience, and I say I got really lucky because, I mean, I just chose an online site. And I had done this a little bit in the past. I had Googled, and then I had stopped at that point. Like, it was too complicated, or like I didn't want to do the work of finding the person. So now I'd finally, like, it took that to be like, no, I'm getting someone, and I'm putting it on the calendar. So I got on a video call. It was like 60 minutes, and this person was amazing. And
really,
I say I'm lucky because he made some big assumptions in 60 minutes. But they were all right. Like, as soon as I said a YouTuber, doing this stuff, irritable, depressed, he immediately was like, well, you're isolated. You're probably missing out this huge element of social interaction that every human needs, no matter how much of a loner you are. Like, you need food, shelter, and you need community or some kind of, like, connection with people.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge breakthrough for me. That was my first ever, like, mental health breakthrough, where he really just told me to go outside and touch grass, which is a famous saying in the gaming community. Oh, he touched grass. He went outside. But that's what I did. So that, it was just a great wake up call. And I immediately became aware of of how my lifestyle affected my mental health and how like I couldn't just keep doing my same pattern. I had to make myself uncomfortable in some ways. Wow. Which is, you know, reaching out and doing the work of like going outside when it's not what I.
So that was one. That was one session.
Yes.
60 minutes. Didn't know that. Like you did the whole thing. Meet the therapist. Have the session. You got this tremendous benefit from it.
He taught me breathing exercises. You know, he did some of the other basic stuff too, which is great.
Okay. Would you say in any way that, like, you mentioned that you had Googled, you had taken steps to do the therapy thing before and never sort of like followed through. Was it this event with the door and all? Was there an element to where you were saying like, I'm going to actually do this even for my wife, just to show her that like, okay, so it wasn't,
100%.
You could have still, okay. So and I think that's really interesting because this is one of the actual benefits of community. Whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, I define introversion as recharging when I'm alone versus recharging when I'm in the company of people. People who recharge in the company of people, I think of them as extroverts. So I typically recharge alone, but one of the things that we learn about even introverts, we've got to have connection and we've got to have community of some kind. And one of the elements of community that I actually learned while working on the documentary is the idea of the social contract. And that is that you can, when you have healthy relationships, and that's a key. I mean, they need to be healthy relationships with people, you know, where there's an exchange of trust and there's some give and take, and you know, you can experience big feelings like shame or guilt in their presence and still come out safe and clean and healthy on the other side. You feel loved. But the social contract of healthy relationships can sometimes bind us to, like, I don't care if you're making X amount of money, and I don't care if you're showing up and doing the job. I don't care about, like, yeah, you're checking all these boxes, but this box ain't working, and I'm a person in your life who's going to stand here and say, like, I'm not you can't hide behind something from me. Like, I'm the one who's looking at this door with a hole in it, and I'm the one, you know. So I think that's beautiful with the film. We did a Kickstarter early on where we raised not even $30,000. In the end, the film cost a lot more, but because of Kickstarter's rules and the legality of like honoring your commitment, I had this commitment where, as I said, I'd finished this movie in a year, and it was taking 6 years. And by the time year 4 and 5 were rolling around, I was shameful and I felt icky and I wanted to quit, but I had a social contract that tied me to, you have to finish this. Like, it can be total shit, but you have to see it through. Social contracts, this element of being tied to someone healthy in your life who holds the flame to you a little bit, not out of cruelty. My wife has been that for me too, in a way. Sorry to interject all that, but I think it's a beautiful and an important thing that we need. This is part of the reason we need people in our lives. It's not purely for entertainment. It's not purely for something else to do. It's not just so we're touching grass. But in some cases, it's so that they can make us see in a kind, gentle, loving way. There's still work to be done, guy. You got to work on this. And so anyway, I love that about Linnell for you and for her. I imagine that could have been a little bit of a scary time for both of you. So you went through this therapy. Then what? Like one and done, you're fixed?
Yeah, I was fixed and everything was perfect after that. Yeah, so
okay.
I didn't follow up with him.
Okay.
And I just kept living my life and thought if I just need to talk to friends more. You know, I had existing friendships and stuff. I wasn't a complete loner, but it's just not what I didn't do a good job of nourishing any relationships really.
Right.
Even my family, just not great at. I mean, I also lived far away, so I'll give myself that. It's hard for me to. It's hard for me to. I don't like texting that much, and like so checking in and like being attached to my phone and like just the interaction of texting each other and like it's just it can be difficult for me. It's not like something I love, but when I'm around people, you know, in a community, it's much easier. So I'll give myself that benefit that I am kind of. We were kind of isolated geographically from my family and childhood friends and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just went back to business as usual and I kept making videos. At that point I was making them, I had slowed down a little bit, It was like once a week, so I still felt productive.
Prior to that, did you say you were doing like one every 5 days?
Yeah, it was like 4 or 5 days, which is just insane.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't even know why I did that. Like, I guess that was just the speed. That was my max speed. I was going at max speed. Like, I was fully maxed out, and I would get stressed when. I remember being stressed that it had been an entire week. Wow, I'm really behind. Like, I haven't uploaded in 1 week, and it's just so funny looking back now. It's like, in the last few months leading up to me quitting, like, I would have been very happy with 1 video a week. Like, it became so miserable and so slow. But if we go back to just like, a year and a half, getting to like a year ago, it became just really slow and really difficult. And
so you saw that therapist about a year before this tweet?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
Okay. So you got back on the horse. Still not loving it. What's this year like? Like, what's going on? And what are some of the battles that are raging? And how are you justifying or pushing away, kicking the ball down the field? Like, what are you doing to cope?
So what I'm doing to cope is I'm going even harder, and I'm doubling down, and I'm becoming more involved in the community, and I'm trying to do more because I feel like I'm not doing enough. In fact, I felt like I had never done enough because, again, my work was so easy to me. I felt shame for not having a real job when all my friends had real jobs, and we'd be playing games with them at night, and it'd be like they have to go to bed because they have work at 6 a.m., and I can just do whatever I want and sleep in, and just, it's just, I definitely felt inherent shame. I tried not to. I tried to just enjoy it and be like, anyone would be happy if they got this lucky to have these skills, this passion, this popularity, all just happened to come together. I got really, it was just right place, right time. So I tried to just have that perspective, but you still internalize that. Like, I didn't feel like I was working at any point. And now I am working, and I'm like, yeah, this is miserable, but the views and money is still there, and so I really need to to transition what I'm doing. So I started an esports org. I started a company. Like, I went way beyond. I pushed myself so
you added
far.
More work. Wow.
A lot more work. But I had help, and I had good partners, and they did a lot of the work that I couldn't do, and like, I still knew my skill sets, but I was really trying to push myself. I was experimenting with, like, can I be a CEO? Like, can I be a big shot business guy? Like, can I lead a company?
So did you get to a point in this stage where you decided, so for example, sometimes when you're doing work, you may say, like, okay, it's starting to suck. Is there some of this I can farm out to lighten the suck? Did that happen for you in this time period?
Yes. So I had some editing help in the past. I would hire kind of people to like do some editing. Sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't. So people kind of came and went in terms of like editing help, but I was still doing 90 to 95%. Like, part of it's just my control nature, but this is my baby. Like, I was working on it. I enjoyed the work, and I felt like I could never explain that to people. And it really frustrated me because in the YouTube landscape right now, and sort of the meta, I'll say the meta meaning like the best practices, the strategy, is you do hire it out, you find people, you become a businessman. Like, that's what the YouTubers do. They transition, they hustle for a little bit, they get popular, and then they sell out in the best possible way to say that, but they sell out.
For functional reasons. They take this thing that was all their passion, and now they go like, I got to spread this out. You
get some brands, you start a company, and you monetize your audience. You sell things to your audience. They all say diversify. Like, you start streaming on Twitch, you stream, you do other things. Like, you
merch.
The big thing is you start a company. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what everyone tells you to do, and that's what people told me to do. Like, they told me, all my friends in the industry and peers, like, this was not even a question of should you do that. That was just that's what you do. Everyone accepted that because they would hear it parroted by their favorite creators, and maybe it worked for them. There's a lot of big creators that have really successful companies because they already have an audience. They start a company, they can talk about their company, their audience buys their products, boom, they have a huge business. Basically, it's like a shortcut to being a business owner. And so I just felt like I had to do that. And I felt like I was missing out if I didn't become a business person, and I didn't. So I was constantly looking for what could this opportunity be. And the opportunity came to me, and I had a partner that had the capital to start esports org and had the passion, and someone I really liked and was a friend with and knew I could work well with them. So everything was right about it. And that's why I also don't regret it, because it was awesome. It was very awesome. It was, we had a lot of success in that team, and like the esports org is great. That's a whole another aspect. But the point is that I really doubled down and tried to do other things, and like still related to Rocket League, but different tasks,
Okay.
But I just wasn't cut out for it. It just wasn't my passion. Like, being a business person is not my skill set.
It's a totally different thing.
Not my passion. I don't like managing people. I don't like managing employees. I enjoyed working under someone way more than working over someone. Like, I just don't. And it's just funny because even when I'm working, there are times, even when I was at the story shop, where I did feel like it would have been nice to be in charge, or where I disagreed with one of your opinion, but I had to go with it because I was the employee. That was fine. But I thought, when I'm in charge, then I can do whatever I want. But then I hated it. So I was like...
Well, and that's not dissimilar from at least my own experience. Like, I didn't ever want to have employees. I wanted to be the guy making the stuff. And then the phone rings, in our case, you get enough calls, and it's like the volume of incoming work starts to rise, and you're like, I can't edit all of these, I can't write all of these, I can't produce all of these. Me and Dave both, our partnership was just being taxed, and we were the makers. We were all of it, kind of in that sense, like you. And then you go, okay, well, we do need to onboard people, and we never, I again, speaking for myself, never wanted to manage people. Because what happens then is you go from my job is doing, it starts with, I found this thing that I love to do. It's not my job. It doesn't pay me anything. I'll do it for free, because that's literally the only option. I do it for free for a while, then I get good at it, then people want to pay me. Now I'm doing this thing that I love, and I'm getting paid for it. And it's like, whoa, this is a dream come true. And then the snowball goes down the mountain a little bit more, and it's like, it's too small. There's a money aspect, like I could be making more money, which is weird because you didn't start doing it for the money. You were literally working for free in the beginning. But now, like, the promise of, money's good, like paying my bills and, having some insurance and things like that. And then before you know it, you go from, I was this person who was super passionate about something to the degree that I did it for free. Now I'm doing stuff you couldn't have paid me to do. I didn't go to business school. Like, I don't want to do business. I don't want to have employees. And you have to, and it's like, how did I end up here? It sounds like that even happens to big time YouTubers, apparently.
It does.
Yeah. So you're trying these things. You're trying to make these shifts because that's what you're supposed to do. Is it helping? Is it making it worse?
It drove me into deep depression then. I was...
Okay.
Biggest thing that I can identify is intense self-hatred. Like, I was not capable of doing this job at all that I was supposed to be able to do. And I wasn't capable of reaching this evolution of really capitalizing on what it means to be a creator. And capitalizing is starting a business, and like, because it's going to go away. There's this scarcity. Like, you're going to lose your audience. It's not, people would always tell me that, it's not going to be around here forever. And I was like, I know. Yeah, it's a game. Like, it runs its course. I realized that, like, that was always a dynamic where the popularity of the game directly affected how I did. And that's not a fun thing to feel that out of your control. Like, it'd be nice to just, your success depends exactly on how good you are.
You just get to print money. I need success. Print. Yeah, it's not that, right?
Yeah. So everyone's just saying, like, it's fleeting. It's fleeting. You need to start a company so you can have, like, a real business and, like, a real job. And essentially just accepting the lie that what I was doing before wasn't it. Wasn't what I should be doing. I should be doing other stuff. And I really accepted that.
So how does the depression start showing up during this period? I recall we had a talk before we went into this where you mentioned how there was a point in your journey where you thought, if it ever gets to a point where I don't like it anymore, or it's too tough anymore, or whatever, I'll just quit. you sort of said that to yourself. Am I recalling that correctly?
Yeah.
Was it that easy?
That was how I envisioned it.
Yeah.
But I couldn't. And partly because I had doubled down. Now I had even more commitments. I was the head of an esports Rocket League team. I had an employee full time. Like, I was sustaining someone that I really liked, and they were really helping me. And I was a lot of really good friendships in the community. Like, I felt very strong. It was who I am. I mean, it was fully my person. Like, it was my friends, my sometimes very close friends that were in the community as well, and peers, and people that really liked me. And I got a lot out of the relationships, like very healthy sense of community. That was awesome. Yeah. One of the best parts about it. Going to events was intoxicating because I was really popular at these events. I was like a celebrity at these events. And
but
so
not
I got to experience
probably walking through the grocery store at home because, like, who the hell are you, right? That's a weird celebrity to be, isn't it?
And I always felt really lucky about that because I could go to the grocery store and no one would recognize me. Every once in a while, someone would, and it would be awesome. I would get this huge ego boost. It would feel so cool to be actually recognized, like, in a random place. It doesn't happen. Didn't happen that much, like maybe 5 times in my entire career. But those were always really great. At events, I couldn't get away. It was actually a problem. Like, I couldn't go to the bathroom and stuff. Like, it was, it's like I needed. Oh God, that just reminded me of all of this other struggle. So I needed some special treatment because it wasn't enjoyable to go to these events. I really wanted to watch the Rocket League games, but it got to be so much where I couldn't sit at a normal seat and have the event. I needed like a booth so I could just watch the games because people were amazing, but they want to get their controller signed in a picture, and I didn't want to say no. I could never say no. Right. So it became kind of a struggle. So I needed to work with the organizer of the events, like, can I get this booth? And it was just, no offense to them, but it was always terribly run and terribly organized. So it was always extremely stressful to go to these events that I really enjoyed the actual games and meeting fans, but it was always so stressful because I never knew where I was going to be sitting. I never knew. It was just always chaos. It was always like, we don't have your badge, and like, we got to get this. Just never organized. Like, just absolute shit show every time. And so that was this whole thing, and I would sometimes complain on Twitter, or like I would try to find ways to be like, this sucks, and like I can't even get a ticket to this event, and I'm like, I'm one of the leaders in this community and I can't even watch this game. I would frustrate like that, and I would get really negative feedback from that. Wow, these YouTubers so entitled, like, you should have to get a ticket like everyone else, and like, how could you? And that really, really affected me because I didn't want to come across as entitled. For one, I didn't feel entitled. It was just a logistical thing. Like, it was an absolute pain at times. Like, I wanted to be in control of when I could see fans and stuff. And
but nobody else can see that or appreciate that. So
yeah,
it just sounds like you're being a whiny little bitch.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I especially affected me because I agreed with them. I agreed with the people that were saying that. And I believe, and I fully accepted that. I was like, yeah, I should have to get a ticket like everyone else. I want to do that. I want to pay for it. I don't want free stuff. I just want to know where I'm going. I just need some, like, and there were times where it was, I did say it was like, it was always a shit show. There were times where they were well organized and they had a person she was awesome. She would lead me around and like say no to people, and like, it was good at times. So overall, I enjoyed the events, but I started to hate them. I started to really hate them about a year ago, and I really did not have a good time at these events for just a lot of reasons, and also because I was losing passion for the game. I didn't realize that at the time. I didn't know why I was miserable at these events.
So you're very clear now looking back, but you're saying at the time it just wasn't clear. Like, you're looking a year back and you're pointing and saying, I see depression. But at that time, you weren't calling it depression?
Not at all. Like, I was just, people talk about burnout. So that was kind of you're burned out, maybe. Okay. But the thing was, I wasn't burnt out of other creations. So I also doubled down in my creative work because I wasn't being fulfilled by Rocket League content. So I started a cooking channel and I was making cooking videos. And that was great. I started a second channel doing more Rocket League stuff. And I made this big hire, this guy that was really helpful and helped me organize everything. He did so much work to organize everything so perfectly and organize my videos for me so I didn't have to do that. And find editors so I didn't have to edit. And he even worked with me when I was like, I really do want to still edit. So he would find editors to do like assembly edits for me, which was super helpful, where I didn't have to do a lot of the finding stuff and Googling stuff, and like just doing absolutely catering to me so perfectly and doing such a great job. And I still just I just couldn't do it. I just didn't want to do it. Wanted to do anything else, really, at that point. This is now coming up on like almost present day, where I just became so miserable. And it started to take really dark turns in the form of depression it was taking.
Okay.
And it started to get really bad, and it manifested in some self-harm, which was something I was just totally unprepared for. I mean, I had no...
That's
I
not
didn't
like
really know what was
you.
happening.
I don't know you your whole life, but I've known you for a long enough period that like... I mean, you skated to work, a skateboard or a penny board, or I don't know what it was, but you had a rich life outside of work. You're extremely likable. You're very laid back. I mean, everybody's a lot of things, but generally speaking, the thought of you as you're just now describing yourself, that's a very different Jared. I've never known you to be that way, right? So
yeah.
As part of your social network, I can look at that and go like, no, you're, from my perspective, I would have to go like, you definitely were picking up on a different version of yourself there for sure. So how in the hell do you think you went from living the dream to, December 1st, you're sending out a tweet. Is the tweet... How committal are you at this point? Are you done? Are you on a sabbatical? Are you taking a little bit of a break? Have you even decided that yet? So that's one of the parts of this question. The other part is like, how do you finally get to that moment? I've done similar things also where I've been working on my own junk behind the scenes, and I'll do something that's public facing. I'll make an announcement. Like I took a break from Facebook at one point. And as I was typing, I'm, taking a break from Facebook, there was this whole other part of me that didn't know I was going to be typing. Like I didn't go through a lot of thought. I literally just one night I'm laying in bed and I just picked up my phone to start typing. I'm taking a break. And this whole slice of me was like, excuse me? We're taking a break. Like there are multiple parts and they weren't all on the same page. And I was watching myself doing something that another part of me was like very against. So talk about this kind of current moment through the lens of those, that's a bad question. I don't know what that was. I know
what you're saying.
But yeah, kind of like jump in there if you don't mind and thrash around at that end of the pool. Let's hear what happens.
Yeah. I mean, it was a full on battle that I was trying to fight here and try to keep going, because I really didn't want to stop, and I really didn't want to admit that I was miserable to myself, and I really hated myself for being miserable in such a cushy, awesome job. Right. That was the biggest difficulty for me, because I'd already wrestled with these feelings of guilt because the job was so easy to me and it made so much money for something I barely controlled. Like I got lucky with some of the things, and so I already had these feelings of like, I wouldn't say they were overwhelming, but they were definitely there. And so I was already struggling with that. So when the job became difficult and not fun and even miserable, then I hated myself even more for being miserable. And it was just this terrible, dark cycle. But I tried so hard to work through it. So I got at that point when self-harm started manifesting, it was serious. I really needed help then. And it was really dark and really low. And I had a good friend that flew out just to be with me during that time, because it was so, it was so awful. And he was just, man, it was so nice just to have him around. But coinciding with that time, I found an in-person therapist that I was seeing once a week, sometimes even more, like every few days. And she's my current therapist, and she is so incredible. I got really fortunate that I found her. So she helped me manage this, and it took a long time even to admit to her that I was self-harming too. Like that was a big moment when I was able to admit that, because that's really embarrassing as an adult for me, because I had this view that that's like something emo teenagers did.
Okay.
And so it was a huge stigma to me, and it was very, very tough to admit. And I've actually never publicly talked about it until now.
Like this is okay. So did your wife know you were self-harming?
Yeah. Yeah. And so she was I don't want to say pressuring, but it was uncomfortable. She wanted me to tell my therapist and stuff, and it was really hard. But I finally did, and then she was so helpful, and she helped me develop a scale for communicating to Linnell, like where I was depression-wise, because that was a big thing was for me to be able to communicate the severity of what I was feeling was really important. So she helped me develop that. She just gave me so many tools and ways to like think about my life and think about what was actually going on and kind of step out of myself and be able to see the truth and like really accept truth about myself and not hate myself, and all these amazing tools that really changed my life. So that was what I needed to do, and I did what I needed to do, and I was doing all this work, this mental health work, and I was still doing YouTube, and I was finding some success. I was still doing some videos that I enjoyed, and I was still making some good videos and making some really good work, and there were a lot of ups where I got through it. You know, my therapist got me through it, and so I was still doing it. I started to develop really healthy habits, and I learned a lot of great things that allowed me to keep going. But it got just more and more miserable each time I sat down in a meeting to try to plan my next videos, and it got to the point where I hated everything to do with Rocket League, and I let it go to the point where I wanted to do, the best way to describe it is just wanted to do anything else. Like I got to the point where I was like, I hate this so much that I want to stop. But I still didn't recognize that until my body gave out. I suffered a really bad injury just from existing. Like I've always had back issues, but coinciding with my improved mental health this year, I was like, I'm gonna really get in a better shape than I've ever been. Like I'm gonna spend less time on Rocket League stuff because that's really hard right now. So I'm gonna focus on my physical health. So I spent more time at the gym, more time outside walking, really great habits. Yeah, touching grass more than ever, meeting people, like going out. My therapist encouraged me to like, do these things for yourself, go to coffee shops, go out there, like live your life, try to, really set these like healthy work-life balance, So I was working only in the mornings because that's when I had the most energy to focus on Rocket League stuff, and then I would clock out 1 or 2 p.m. and just work out, meet friends, like try to live basically like try to enjoy my life while I'm still working. Like instead of viewing it as like I'm gonna retire one day and be happy. Like
so therapy wasn't like I went to therapy and she got me to quit going on YouTube. You were making all these like healthy adjustments that made it possible to keep going even for a little while. But then you said your body just quit. What did that look like?
It was extremely painful. So suddenly I couldn't. It was so sudden. I mean, I had some lower back pain, sure, but I was stretching and I was like doing yoga and like doing everything I could. But then about 3 weeks ago, I couldn't even sit without feeling pain. Like You're always back. In pain. And it got so bad where I couldn't sleep, and it was just really overwhelming pain. It became so extreme, and it was clearly pinching the nerve. Like it clearly wasn't a muscle. My muscles were really tense, and like things to like stretch and massage my muscles were helping a little bit, but like it was clear it was like something with my spine. Like my foot was hurting really bad, my leg was hurting really bad, so it was like I was putting it together. I was like, this is probably like pinching a nerve or something. And then I went to a couple chiropractors, and I found out that I have scoliosis, and that's a big scary word. And looking at the X-ray and seeing my spine, it looks like an S curve, and like he's like, this is where it's pressured. It's like upper back, and your lower 2 vertebrae are like, you clearly have like a disc injury. Like you're immobilized. Wow. Like this is gonna be months. You're gonna have to really like focus on this. Wow. And you're gonna have to rest. You can't exercise for a while. Like the discs need to heal. You have to go for an MRI. Like, and then he recommended all this stuff. Like you need to get a shoe, and like it was just it really overwhelming for me. And that night, I had like a mental breakdown to the level that I've just never had before. It was just I was completely broken. because I just had nothing anymore. Like I really needed that, like getting outside and walking, and like the physical exercise was just a big part of how I was coping with the stress of not wanting to do this job anymore.
So now that's you're losing that. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. And so all I have now is just my sitting at home doing my work, and it just sounded like the worst thing. And then I realized, I need to stop. I need to quit. And then I really hated that idea too.
You need to stop. You need to quit what?
I need to quit Rocket League. Like I need to stop. Wow. I need to do some other type of job if I can. Like I need to just really step away. Like finally became clear. It was like I just got to the end of the rope, like end of the line. Like I was completely empty and broken at that point. And
this brings us to the present moment.
Yeah, this was a few weeks ago, and then
a few weeks ago,
2 weeks ago, where I reached this point.
So you made this post.
I made the decision before I made the post, and that was the agonizing part, because then I had all these loose ends. I had all these things I needed to fix. I had all these commitments, and it's like even thinking about, like I couldn't allow myself to quit because I kept thinking about all the commitments I had and all the my employee and my like I had content planned. I had some editors working on stuff. I had a video or two in the pipeline. I had a show. I was supposed to host a show in a week. It was called the SunlessKhan. Like my name was on the tournament, and I had accepted like an endorsement. Like I was getting paid to do this, and it was like it was an amazing opportunity. Like it was really good pay and really great partner like that was working with me on this. And so if I wanted to stop, I was going to be turning down a huge check. And like, so this money is like waving in my face where it's like an easy thing. Like I should be able to really just get up there and host this show. Like it's not going to be that hard. And it was something that I was looking forward to, it was like, but at that point I was in a really bad place.
Yeah.
And so I just recognized that I couldn't do it. But then I would think through the logistics, and I hated myself, and I hated the options, and I felt like really like a trapped animal. I was like completely cornered. Wow.
Because you're letting yourself down, but you're letting other people down. Like there's this.
Yeah. There's a lot.
It sounds like a trap. I mean, to say a caged animal, like it does sound like a trap. But again, who do you talk to? Because like you mentioned briefly with people commenting on you complaining about how an event might not be going super smoothly or whatever, you kind of getting this early taste of like, quit being such a damn diva. Like, put on your big boy pants and do this. Like, it's like, who do you really even go to outside of close friends, your wife, your therapist? Like, this is not something you feel probably like you can bring to the community, because it
I never
falls so far outside of why they're there and why you're there. Like, it's not the job, right? So
yes.
So how did you make that decision? Like that, I feel like to people who aren't looking at the check, to people who don't have those outstanding commitments, who don't have planes still in the air that need to come down for a landing, like to those of us who aren't living that experience, it just sounds like details of a story. But to you, it's like, this is deep and visceral, and yet you did make the decision that you made. So kind of like how did that happen? And did you immediately feel awesome? Or in the weeks since you've done that, has it been a steady mixture of happy and not happy? Like, what's it been like since? And how did you actually get to the moment where you like made the call?
Yeah, that night I worked through it in my head a lot, and I wasn't coming to a conclusion, and so I was just a cycle of just sobbing, and just I was like an infant. Like I was powerless. I was just like in the fetal position, just sobbing the entire night. And I've never experienced that. Like I've never just like nonstop wet. It was such a clear breakdown moment that I'd never experienced as an adult at all. And even going through like some losses, I've never like had that like that crushing like sorrow or pain before. So it was all new to me, but I knew because of that reaction, I had to explore every option. And I was like, well, I do have the power. I do have some choice. Like, I do have the power. I'm not actually trapped. Like, I can just stop. Like, so it was this really powerful moment where the side of me that cares about myself and doesn't hate myself stood up and said, like, no, you do have a choice. You can just stop. Like, it's going to suck a lot, but you're completely broken. Like, you have to fix yourself. Like, you need to work on yourself.
Wow. In
a way that I hadn't before. Like, and you can't try to do your job. Like, your job now is going to be to, like, heal yourself. Like, that became very clear to me that was going to be the number one priority, was to, like, heal my back and rest. And then the other side of it was, I'm also going to, mentally rest. Like, I'm going to try to do something else. And I'm even going to keep the door open. Like, I'm not even going to completely walk away. Like, that's why it felt really empowering. I was like, I'm going to announce that I'm taking an indefinite time. I do have a time frame in my head, but I'm not going to say that because that's just for me and friends. But I was like, I'm going to wait for this pretty long period of rest that I've never taken before. I think the longest I've gone without working on Rocket League stuff is 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
In 5 years. So, like, this is, like, even my vacations, it's actually painful because I could never really, like, get away, because even on vacations I'm thinking about Rocket League stuff. Yeah. And I just really hate that.
So this is different, because this was much more than 2 weeks, right?
Yeah. Yes, and this is going to be a clean break. Like, I'm not going to go on Twitter. I'm going to respond in very limited ways to, like, people in the community, even the ones that I really like. And I'm going to, if they have my phone number or if they have Discord, I might reach out, but I'm going to take a really clean separation, a real big break.
Yeah.
And if I don't want to come back, I'm not going to. Like, I'm going to see how I feel after this long period. And maybe I will want to. But I knew it would never be the same again. So that's why I finally crafted that statement where I was like, you'll probably see me again. It's such a big part of my life that I would be surprised if I never posted any Rocket League video ever again. But it's just going to be very, very different, where it's not going to control my life anymore. I'm not going to hire someone again. Like, I'm not going to have a business anymore in Rocket League. Like, it's going to be...
Now, you're saying that pretty definitively at this point. Like,
whereas I know
the break is maybe, time limited, but you're sure, like, there are aspects of this that I'm carving out that I will never bring back.
Yeah. And that's when I'm never going to try to... Yeah, I'm not going to approach it the same way again. I might go into other aspects or other career options, and I might take that more seriously, but I'm never going to try to... I'm not going to try to make that work again. And maybe, if there's a chance I could just do Rocket League videos on the side and I'm enjoying it, and then maybe I do some more, and maybe I'm uploading 3 videos in a month at one time when it feels really great, and I'm not going to close the door on that and say, like, no, I'm never going to do that. But it'll just be me. Like, it'll just be me whittling away on it, which is honestly how it was for, like, 80% of my channel anyway, of my channel's life. It was just me. So kind of just returning to that, like, returning to the core of what I enjoyed about it, which was just me working on my videos.
So there's an element here where you made your announcement, you know where you're at and you know what you're doing, and I just have so much respect for you as a human and as a friend, for all of this. And there's a very private element of this whole thing. I mean, like the things you've shared with me here today, you don't owe anybody that, but you decided to go ahead and do this. I certainly didn't twist your arm. I asked, fully expected. I've been asking a lot of people, so also don't be flattered. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I'm in my own early stages where I gotta, like, program content. I gotta figure out what to do, and so but, like, you did decide to do this. And you've said things in this interview that you've indicated you've not told anyone before. So why are you sharing some of this kind of deeply personal stuff? You could have just left it very vague. I don't know necessarily that your audience will encounter this. They may or may not. I'm not even sure how this is being released, if any differently than normal. They may never see this, but I'm assuming you want some people in your audience to have access to kind of the bigger truth behind your story. So why? Why is that important to you? I know why I talk about my shit, but I don't presume that everybody should or that anybody else ought to want to or any of that, but here you are. So like what's kind of a motivating factor behind this for you? I don't get the feeling that you're looking for sympathy or pity or anything like that. I get that feeling not at all.
Yeah.
So what's your thinking behind why you wanted to kind of like go there today?
Yeah, you're right too, because I'm not like setting the record straight or like putting the truth out there or like letting everyone know what really happened. Like it's none of that.
Yeah. There's no scandal.
Yeah, exactly. Because what I was saying in the tweet, like nobody did anything wrong, and I fully believe that. Yeah. Like I didn't want anyone to think that someone had wronged me or like I was stepping away because I was upset about something. And it's actually really unfortunate because with our esports team, there was a roster change right at that time. And so people definitely thought that I was stepping away and this roster change was happening. But it was just funny because my business partner handles that esports roster. So
that was purely coincidental.
He was in control of that and in charge of that. And I wasn't doing anything with that anyway. So it's kind of, if people would have known that about how we worked in the background, they would have known that it had nothing to do with that. So that, I guess that is kind of a nice thing to set the record straight. But no, the reason I'm talking about it is because I have come through the other side and I do have respect for myself and I do have appreciation for myself now. And I feel like I can talk about it and I can admit that I was guilty, that the work was so easy for me, and I can be like, maybe I was just super talented at that work and it was so easy for me because I was good at it and I loved it and I was passionate about it. And now I'm not. And so now it's harder. And then I went so far that I made myself miserable and made it impossible. And now I've made a change that was really, really hard and difficult. And I still did it because I'm looking out for myself. It's a really powerful moment as someone that I haven't really done that, other than just like my own, like following my passion when it's convenient, and not having to do too much to like make myself happy, because it doesn't take that much. Like all I needed was a passion project, and it turned into this amazing thing. That's all I needed to be happy, and now it's gone, and so I have to find other ways to be happy and healthy. And I feel like I am on that path, and so I'm happy about that, and I'm glad to share it. I want to share about it. I want to talk about it. So that's why.
What's the important takeaway, do you think, to other people? I mean, you're the kind of person who likes to be helpful. I mean, that's been true about you since before. I mean, even when you first hired on with us, and then even the genesis of your Rocket League thing was like, I'm going to help people know how to do stuff. Like, you're just kind of a helpful soul. You always have been. And I sense an element of this to where you're kind of like saying, you're kind of extending a little bit of a glimpse into the totality of your experience, including the dysfunction, because I presume there's an element of you that goes like, I can't be the only person who's going through this stuff. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Like, is there a little bit of an element here where you're kind of hoping that your story may inspire or kind of provoke or push someone to take their own struggling a little more seriously? Is there any element of that here?
Yeah. Yeah, I think especially related to finding like your purpose and your job in life, or like what you really care about. Okay. And I think there's a real problem. I don't know what everyone's situation is like, but I think a lot of people ignore what they're actually passionate about. And I know I'm super lucky that I did get to have that experience where my work did coincide with what I was passionate about.
Yeah.
But I think what I've learned is I can be equally passionate about other things, and I can find other things to work on. And I'm lucky that I have, I'm in a position where I can take a break and I can explore other things. So I realize I'm lucky with that. Yeah. But I still have just realized the importance of correlating success with passion. Like, passion is it's thrown around so much. It's like, what does it even really mean? Like, passion, you're excited about your job. But I'm really discovering like how important that element is to happiness and to fulfillment in life. It's like you really need to care about what you're doing, and it's not necessarily about being like giddy about it, but you have to care about it, or you're lying to yourself, or you're going against what you want. And sometimes you have to. I mean, like sometimes you have to put bread on the table. Like, it's not like, that's why I'm really careful about what I say there.
Come over here and check this out, Jared. Come see what that look. No, but what you just said, you have to be careful. I totally get it. Like, these are those things that you want to say, but then it's like there's these people who are working these miserable jobs, always will be, and they want to look guys like you in the eye and go, "Hey, buddy, go fuck yourself," But
I'm super conscious.
You're still talking though, right?
Yeah. And the reason I reached this conclusion is because I got fed an Instagram reel, and I had no idea why I got this. It was a person talking about something that I did not care about. He was talking about trees. It was a forester. And I was like, why did I get recommended this? Is this popular? It had a ton of views. It was viral. But it was just a dude talking about a certain type of species of tree. And he was explaining that it hates shade, so it grows really tall, and it doesn't grow any branches until it gets to the top, and it pokes out of the forest roof because it hates shade so much. So that's why it's so... And then that's why the way that it is. Like, he was just explaining that.
Okay.
And I was like, why is this so compelling? And I realized it was really compelling because he really cared about it. And it was the inflection in his voice, and it was his hand motions, and he wasn't over the top. It wasn't a bunch of edits. He wasn't saying, boom, trees, bah, bing. It wasn't like crazy stimulating. It was just a guy talking about trees, and it was his life work. It was his passion. And it was so clear that you couldn't help but watch it. You had to, because there was conviction in his voice. Like, and I was like, okay, that's what passion is. It's like, you don't have to be an entertainer or something. Like, and then I was thinking about my teachers in high school, and I thought about my favorite teacher, and he was the chemistry teacher. Not my field at all. Do not give a shit about chemistry. Never was going to be a doctor or biologist, but I loved that chemistry class because he would just talk, the molecules, they're going to combine and they're going to form this. And he was so excited about it that I just had to listen. And so that was a big epiphany where I was like, okay, you can only fake it so much. Maybe some people are better at faking than others. But if you really have passion about what you're doing, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, you can find fulfillment in it. My dad talks about how he finds fulfillment. I ask him all the time because I hate his job. I've worked with him, and he remodels kitchens. Like, he does very physical labor, and I never enjoyed it. And I ask him, like, Dad, are you miserable at work? You're getting up really early. And he's like, no, because I find satisfaction in my job. I do a good job, and I'm passionate about it. And that's kind of come together to be like, okay, now I'm realizing that the passion, you can't really ignore that. Like, that is really important. You can't lie to yourself. Like, you can't really fake it, or you're going to crush your soul. Like I did. I tried to fake it. I tried to do something I wasn't passionate about.
It's almost like people who become entertainers on some level or another. There's this really easy hole that you can fall into where, you start doing it because you're flowing out of who you are as a person, but by the time you're done, you're doing it because you're playing a role. And you didn't actually start by playing, or you weren't an actor. You didn't sign up to act. And I think too, like, a lot of times when we think about celebrity, or because by certain real measures, you're a celebrity, and there are other kinds of celebrities, and celebrities, there's sort of like, there's not just one kind of celebrity anymore. It used to be like stars. They're just one thing, They're just people who are everywhere, and they wanted to be seen, and they want to be, loved and adored and worshipped or whatever. Maybe there was a stigma of them having like big egos and this kind of thing. But nowadays, you've got people who reach what I would call celebrity status who are not interested in being in the public eye necessarily. They don't have big egos. They're not necessarily driven by the things that one kind of celebrity used to, it used to only be these people were celebrities. Now, a lot of ordinary people can become, can arrive at sort of a celebrity status. And the status, from what you said in your story, the status brings, well, now you got to do this, and now you got to do this. To secure your place, you got to have a business, and you got to have a manager, and you got to have employees, and you got blah, blah, blah. And it's like, suddenly I literally walked into the room and I sat down as me. And 5 years later, I realized it's not me here anymore. It's this role that I'm playing. If you listen to early Willie Nelson, he's singing. But if you listen to Willie Nelson now, he's like doing this weird, it's like he's parodying Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
He's parroting himself.
So good. That's
so maybe I will use it.
God, I wish I could
exactly.
use that. Because that is what happened. Yeah, it got to the point where it was not me at all. Like I was just doing what would get views, and it was just completely soul crushing.
Yeah.
And it was just really hard to admit that I didn't like it too. That was the biggest element was the battle between myself and not being able to admit that I didn't like this awesome job that I thought I liked and that I did like before, and was not only did I like, it was all I wanted to do. I wanted to do nothing else. It was the only thing I wanted to do in the world. And now I hated it. Like, it was...
And you were really being rewarded handsomely.
Yes.
And at the
point
of
external
where
reward.
All kinds of reward. I don't even just mean money. I mean, like, just all this affirmation, all of these green lights, all of these thumbs up, all of these yes. And then it comes to a point where you go, like, I'm being affirmed for a thing that I actually, this is not what I started to do. And the stuff that's affirming me is affirming things about this that I wasn't even, like, and at some point you go, have I been taken over? I'm not pretending to know what it's like to be in your shoes in terms of being a 2.2 million subscribed YouTube channel.
I mean, you're describing it pretty well.
but I think it's part of the human experience. I mean, I think it can happen at a lot of different levels, and I think that's why your story, even though some people will go, oh, you poor baby. I do think that stories from folks like you in situations like yours are still extremely relevant and extremely applicable and useful to those of us who will never summit that particular mountain because we're not climbing it, or it's not, I'm super grateful for you as a friend over the years. I'm super grateful for just all the opportunities we've had to work together. You've always been a very giving person. You've always gone above and beyond. You are a passionate person, and I have loved watching you grow and flourish and thrive. There is zero part of me that takes joy in hearing about your struggle, but there is a part of me that when I hear about your struggle, I find joy in the fact that Jared is still a real human person, and you didn't get lost, and you didn't get swallowed up by this thing. And I don't think it's over for you. And I don't think you're saying that. I think you're just demonstrating what it looks like when I think, someone gets into the cockpit of the airplane saying, I want to fly airplanes, and they're flying airplanes. And then some point along the way, they install an autopilot. And at some point along the way, it's just sort of like the plane flies itself now, and your role has changed. And you kind of said, you know what? I'm grabbing the wheel and I'm flying this. I'm the pilot and I'm going to take charge. And so I just have tremendous respect for you, because it doesn't end that way for a lot of people. A lot of people can get swallowed up. And I hope for you that this moment in your journey will just be an opportunity for you to, in a way, kind of prune back so you can grow out and flourish and in a new and better way for yourself, in ways that matter to you, not in ways that matter to all the rest of us. I'm curious, before we leave off here today, is there any kind of word of wisdom? I mean, you could even give it to me if you want. Like, I'm certainly not aiming for millions of subscribers, but there are a lot of people out there who are early stages of what even you were, who were saying, like, I'm going to make a go of trying to make content or do something in the world, or start their own business, try to provide some new opportunity for themselves or their families. And you've been through a bit of a gauntlet here. It sounds like, in a way, you kind of had I would call it a Dave Chappelle moment, where you had the golden handcuffs on. I mean, you were doing so well that the money alone could have said, like, what the hell do you think you're talking about? Quit. And I have tremendous respect for people who are able to, for whatever reason and through whatever process, to eventually kind of come back into themselves and go, like, it wasn't about the money in the beginning and it can't be about that now. And they reclaim ownership of themselves and their destiny. Is there any advice, looking from this point where you're at now back, that you would give maybe even to your younger self or to a person getting started on any pursuit like this, that that you think now, coming kind of in this full circle moment, you would go, this is the nugget. This is the thing that can't be lost or forgotten.
Yeah, and it really does come full circle, because it was actually that one nugget, or that one like point of truth. I actually first heard it when I first met you. You came to one of my college classes and you talked about your experience.
Okay.
And I don't even know if you remember that this was one of your takeaways, but one of your biggest takeaways that I clung to was you said you really need to find your thing. Like, you need to find that purpose, which I think even that's a common sort of nugget of wisdom, is find your purpose or find your passion in life.
Yeah.
But I just think that's one of the most important things in the world. And so when I heard you say that, I felt that was true, and I'd hoped that one day I would find something like that. And then I did. And then what I've found now is it's okay for your passions to shift, and it's okay to evolve and change. But you do need that, and you need to care about what you're doing, because if you don't care about what you're doing, I mean, what's the point of living, really? Like, that's it almost seems dumb, but it's like, if you don't care about what you're doing, I mean, you have to find something, even if it's in the mundane, aspects of life. I've just realized the importance. It's kind of something I glossed over, and so what brought me through it, and what's the reason I'm not miserable and depressed right now. I'm a little depressed, but I'm not. I'm better off than I was now that I've stepped away, is I cling to the hope that I will find another something. And like, I have some other interests that I'm now going to cultivate, and I have other relationships now that I'm going to cultivate more. And, I can explore parenthood, maybe, like, there's other things that I can pour myself into and care about that are different than what was my one thing before. So just finding the hope that, like, you can find your thing. It's not gonna always stumble up to, it might take some discovery, but.
And I love what you just said about how it can also change.
Yeah.
Like, we oftentimes lock ourselves into a commitment with an old dream or an old commitment, or like, I signed a contract with myself. I promised myself X, Y, and Z, and the world keeps spinning. Life keeps changing. The environment changes around us. There's no reason to think that the thing we once agreed to won't itself take on new shapes, new dimensions, new gravity, new weight. And it's like allowing yourself, I think, for me, coming from like with religious trauma and my history with religion, there's this idea of honor your commitments. Honor your commitments and like see everything through to the bitter end. And like what you've discovered here is this idea of like, honor your commitments until they are no longer healthy or serving you or your community in a good way. And then at the very minimum, release yourself to make a new commitment.
Yeah. And it takes self-respect. It takes
absolutely.
It takes acknowledging that's where your heart's leading. If you're fighting against that, that's like the ultimate turmoil. Like that's what led to my depression, is fighting against what my heart and true like purpose and life and passion were pointing towards. Just ignoring that is just destructive. I'm grateful for YouTube, that it exists and like allowed me to express myself. And I'm just grateful for it all, to be honest. I'm grateful for the platform to exist and to be able to explore my passion on there. I think it's just awesome.
Yeah. Well, you've done an amazing job at it. You're not as big as you are because you're just lucky. I know there's luck, and you pointed to that, but you're very good at what you do, and you're a very good person, and I love you, and I'm super grateful that you did this, obviously, and that you saw fit to take the conversation where it's gone. I'm really grateful, so thank you for that.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for watching. If you like what you've seen, please like, subscribe, share, comment. Just do anything you can to help us spread the word. Also, visit my website at lukerenner.com. Until next time, be safe, stay curious, give grace, make love, and be truly alive.